all of 2020, I didn't have a single profitable month. I actually lost money every single month. So I told myself, I said, every single day, whatever I make, I wired out. If I made 50 bucks, 200 bucks, 300, whatever it is, I wired out. Each day I started fresh and I couldn't lose more than 100 bucks. I felt I had to pay myself and prove to myself over and over and over and over and over again that I could do this.
Wow, this number really blows my mind. Over 75% of you who watch the show regularly are not subscribed. If you enjoy the show and want to support us, the easiest and also free way is just to hit that subscribe button. This will help us find new and better guests, and I promise you to continue to work at making this show better and bringing you more value. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today is going to be a great day. I have my man Ben, who is a long bias small cap to mid cap trader. This is going to be fun because, a lot of our conversations revolve around short selling on the small cap world. Occasionally, we'll run into a long bias trader. So, Ben, thanks for being on the show today. And by the way, he's been trading for a little over 4 years, and we're going to dive deep into his story today. So, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I look forward to it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, let's get started with what got you even started in this game of trading?
Kind of a little bit of luck, I would say. 2020, when COVID hit, I was a personal trainer for 7-8 years leading up to that. So I was full-time personal training, and then all of a sudden everything got shut down, and I'm sitting at home, and after a few weeks, I'm like, it was cool to be off for a little while, but I got to find something to do. And that's when I found, I saw some Tim Sykes ads, I saw different stuff, and I just started diving into it. I bought a couple books and was like, yeah, maybe this is something I could pick up on the side, or who knows? I was just like, I'm interested and I've got free time, so let's take a look. And that is how I got into it. And COVID really hit the gyms hard as a personal trainer because, we were shut down, and then when you went back, people were still, it was a mess. So like my business was crushed. I just built my business up. I was doing really well. COVID hit. It was crushed. I went back. It was literally gone. I maybe had 5-10% of my business. So that really kind of gave me the kick to like, hey, you're really interested in trading. Like I've always loved numbers, money, just patterns, trends. I'm like a very analytical person. So I was like, this is my chance. And that's what I did is I quit my personal training job in November of 2020 and started trading full time January 2021. I had maybe a few clients on the side to, a little bit of cash flow, but other than that, I had nothing. So it was all or nothing.
Okay, let's dive into that because, all or nothing, you dive in. Is this with literally no experience at that point, really?
Yeah.
So were you studying at all before this happened at all?
June 2020 is when I first picked it up and started placing, trades, not knowing I didn't know anything. But
did you start with real money or paper account? How'd you start?
Paper account for maybe a couple of weeks. And I'm like, this isn't real. Like I have to get some skill in the game. So that's when I honestly can't remember what I started with, maybe 5K or something like that. But it was a small account. And I started making trades, not knowing what I'm doing. And I left my job in November. But leading all of 2020, I didn't have a single profitable month. I actually lost money every single month. So that is what made the all or nothing even crazier, is because I was like, I didn't have profitability when I decided to go full time. I had a little bit of personal training money on the side coming in, but that was it. And looking back, I'm like, I'm probably the poster child of what not to do when getting into trading, but I guess it worked. So
I love that it worked. That's a huge blessing, man. And what I'm curious about is, you start trading, you go full time, you haven't had a winning month. What happens next, man? Like you don't have a winning month, you start going full time, you start risking capital. Like, can you give us a picture idea of like how you were risking? Were you risking very, very small, or were you risking too big? Could you give us some ideas?
So for the 2020, those first 6-7 months, I learned a lot in terms of why I was losing, how to lose, what I was doing to lose. I wasn't winning a lot, but it was almost like you're losing more than you win in terms of the dollar amounts. So you have wins and you have losses, but the dollar amounts are bigger with the losses. So yeah, it's very common when you're a new trader. But the learning lessons over those 6-7 months led me to January when I went full time. In terms of, I kept it super simple. My goal was I want to try and make 50K for the first year. Like that was my goal. I said, if I can make 50K in 2021 doing it full time, I said that'll beat going to work some crappy job that is going to be somewhat equivalent. So that was my goal, was 50K. And then you break that down, that's $200 a day, rough, give or take. And I know things aren't perfectly linear in trading, not even close. But I thought to myself, I've seen what happened in 2020, all the movement. If I can take 1,000 shares and get 20 cents of moves, that's $200 a day. So I kept it so simple. That was my goal. That was my thought process every day. I know you're gonna have trades where you win and you lose, but if I could be in the net positive 20 cents a day with 1,000 shares, there's my goal. So that was as simple long-term goal as I could have set. That made sense to me, and that's kind of how I got started with that mindset, month one full time.
By now, you know our show is sponsored by Cobra Trading. I use them every day, and for good reason. I love the fast execution and the great customer service. And it's not just me saying this. Both Benzinga and Forbes Advisor awarded Cobra Trading best-in-class ratings in multiple categories for day traders. You can sign up now with the Be The Trader link below, and Cobra will give you 100 days of free commission, 3 months of free software, and 33% off commission for life. I know you'll be as happy as I am when you trade with Cobra. Now let's get back to the show. So what were you trading? Like how'd you determine what to trade? Like what were you doing?
So over the lessons that you learn through all your losses is what not to do. So I'm discretionary. I'm not someone into back testing and data and all that stuff, but I created an extreme amount of rules for myself throughout those 6-7 months leading up to it. I mean, when I found myself, I remember there was November, December of 2020 when I lost a bunch. I found myself shorting Target, a large cap, because I saw someone else in some chat doing like just a total, like I was out in left field doing crazy stuff because I was trying to make some money. That's when I was like the light bulb went out, like, stop, what are you doing? You have to dial into what you do best and eliminate everything that you struggle with. So I made a lot of rules for myself over the course of those 6-7 months, and then it only built as I became full time. When you're full time, you have more experience, more screen time, more ways to review your trades, good and bad.
Yep.
And you're also more connected to the market, connected to people, other traders who are successful, and that's where creating the rules for yourself that fit my personality, that was the key. And I could dive into...
Go ahead.
2 rules. So the first one was, when I went full time, I funded my account to $25,100.
Mm-hmm.
So over PDT, but I could not lose more than $100 or I'd go below PDT, and you have to, transfer money. And at that time, in 2020, I had lost over 20K. So I only had like what was in my account, that money, and then I had some credit card. I mean, I was 10, 15K to my name. That's it.
Oh, okay. So you were all in for real.
Yeah, I was all in. And I funded my account to that. And I told myself, I said, every single day, whatever I make, I wired out. So every single day, if I made $50, $200, 300, whatever it is, I wired out. Because then each day I started fresh, and I couldn't lose more than $100. And over time, I think I upped it to maybe 26K, but every single day for the whole, I remember it was until October of 21, I kept my account at 26K every single day I wired out. If I lost money, I wouldn't wire in or wire out. I would look for a green day and get it back over 26K or whatever, and take out the extra, but I'd always keep it at 26K. So I felt I had to pay myself and prove to myself over and over and over and over and over again that I could do this.
That had, that, let's talk about these rules real quick before we dive into that further, because, people listening in, they hear that, you found trading, at the beginning, you started to lose every month, all of 2020, pretty much. And then you decided to quit to go full time, even though you had that experience. But you said you developed rules along the way. So obviously you tracked, and obviously you looked at everything, right? And can you give us some ideas of, like, this tracking this made me create this rule. Doing this made me. Could you give us an idea of, like, how you develop your rules, just so that we can help the audience out?
Yeah. So that was my first guideline was the account type, or not the account type, the account amount. Wiring in and out, or just wiring out. But the rules I came up with were, some of the ones that personally for me and other people would look like, what is this guy doing? But no pre-market, no after hours, no swinging. So I was intraday trading, market hours, that's it. And I figured that out by looking back at losses I had trading pre-market, trading after hours. So that was one of the big things for me. And still to this day, I'm the same way. I still just trade market hours. That's it. Another rule I would say is long bias, only long bias. I didn't want anything to do with both sides of the market. I wanted to learn one, and then, eventually I could learn the other. And because of that, being long bias, I feel like there's a lot of short sellers, especially when you are first new to trading, you see all that. But when you look at the markets over time, they've always gone up. Small caps are different in terms of a lot of them or most of them fail. But at some point, they usually all go up to some extent before they go back down. So I thought understanding the long side, and to me, the risk tolerance is a lot safer on the long side than the short side. So no shorting, only long bias during market hours. Those were kind of the biggest things for me. And then that leads into, like, developing what you trade in the strategy. So small caps, mid caps. And the thing I focused on and found over time, two people that are really they probably don't even know it. I've never met them, but Roland and Cody, Odd Stock Trader, they were two of the most influential people, I would say, on my strategy in terms of sectors, themes, sympathy plays. Like, that's my bread and butter. So learning how to spot those, learning how those move, why they move, that kind of stuff, that's where I connected with the most.
Let's dive into that a little bit more then. When it comes to your style of trading, your long bias, and you like to trade hot sectors.
Yep.
Now, off camera, you and I talked a little bit, and you mentioned that you do trade frequently, like every day, it sounds like. But there's not hot sectors every day, right? Or unless we all define it differently. So could you explain a little bit?
Yeah. So earlier on 2020, 2021, there was a lot more. It's very different than it is now. There was a lot more hot sectors. There was a lot more momentum. There was a lot more money flow, volume. It was chaos. I didn't know it at the time because I was new. I just thought you read that it's chaos, but that's what you dive into. That's what you think, oh, this is what it is. So looking back at it, I think I was lucky to have found it at that time, because I could think back and there was a lot more sector moves and themes and sympathy plays then during those years of 2020, 2021 that we may see now. So that helped me having the frequency of hot sectors. I know Bitcoin was moving back then. It's always in play, but it was moving back then. I remember the first sector was I believe it was March of 21 that really it clicked in my head, was NFT stocks. I don't know if you remember, but there was NFT stocks, and Cody was the one who through Investors Underground I had seen that he was on this stuff way before, and I'm watching what he's doing in these stocks, and then I see it, and I actually made a few good trades on him, and I'm like, wow, like look at the possibilities here. And that's what made me focus on sectors, sympathy, themes, and stuff going forward. Was that specific light bulb moment for sure.
Would you say now you're different? Like you don't just focus on that, or
Yeah, I would say I have a better understanding of the bigger picture daily charts. I don't have to be just trading a sector or a theme, but if it's a good daily chart, it's breakouts. I mean, multi-day breakouts, weekday breakout, intraday breakouts, multi-week breakouts, or just a beat down chart that's finally reset. Maybe there's some catalysts coming in. So yeah, nowadays I would say I have more variety, but my bread and butter, anytime there's a hot sector, that's when I'm like pedal to the metal. I don't think I just go.
So what would you say for a new trader who's just starting out and they want to focus on the long bias side? Any advice you have for them?
I would say the biggest thing is understanding the big picture of long bias trading. When you're new, you want to focus on what's going on, what's right in front of you, but the daily chart is so important in terms of understanding where things can go, why they might go, why they won't go.
Mm-hmm.
Like it kind of tells a story, but when you're new, you don't really understand all of those concepts. So some of those concepts you'll see are, support levels, resistance levels. I mean, the biggest thing with the daily chart as a long bias trader that you'll see is those resistance levels. If it's you look back on the chart, if it's a 1 year chart and you see 3, 4, 5 candles that hit the same spot, they hit the $2 mark and then they failed and stuff like that, you'll see those resistance levels it's not so clear when you're new, but over time, as you see them more and more and more, and you see, man, why did this explode so much on this day or these last 2 days or this week? And then you look back and you see, oh, look at the volume that came in, look at the level it went through, and look at the volume before that. There's nothing, there's blue skies up above. But on top of that, understanding that breakouts aren't perfectly clean, they don't go straight up. Like we did see in 2020, 2021, a lot of crazy straight up and down moves, but that was kind of a unique situation. It wasn't what you see, now day to day. And from what I've heard, how the markets were prior to 2020 when I, started learning. So I would say understanding the big picture, learning about support and resistance, and understanding that they don't work perfectly. You may have fake outs, you may have, fake out breakouts, fake out breakdowns. It's not going to be perfect, but when they work, the key levels work. So if it breaks through a resistance point and comes back to that point and holds, that's a good sign. As a new trader, you might, you're chasing the breakout, you buy it, it pulls back, you sell, and then it never turns back from there, but you don't know that at the time because you haven't experienced it. So understanding that things don't work in a straight line, that some may work quicker, some may work, slower, but typically the real strong breakouts take time and they happen over multiple days, weeks, even months, especially when you get into more of the mid caps or the hot sector themes.
Now, as a day trader who closes all positions overnight, I know you mentioned that you don't like to hold overnight, you like to sleep. How do you take it? Do you only trade the breakout once or do you trade it multiple times?
I will take it, so whether it's a sector or it's just an individual chart that I like, I will trade it each day if I can get an entry. So, it may just be a scalp one day. The later on in the chart it gets, the more cautious I am, the more likely it's just going to be a scalp, or I may not take it if I can't find an entry that I like. If there's not, one of those support lines, it may be just one that I just am watching because I didn't get in where I like, or, the previous day, maybe I traded it well, but as it gets later and later, I'm more cautious because, it's going to end at some point, but over time, I've gotten better at being more patient. Early on, totally scalping. I mean, looking for 10 cents, 5, 10 15, 20 cents in short, quick moves. Whereas now, and that's very different, 1,000, 2,000 shares, looking for those 5, 10, 15, 20 cent moves versus now building in with larger size, understanding things don't work linearly. They have to build themselves up and adding in key spots and that kind of stuff to build a position for a bigger move versus just a small part of the move when you're scalping. That's been key to my progress, I would say, at this point. But early, I'm still trading the same things. I'm just getting better at them. So that's sticking to what you understand and what speaks to you, and just building on it every single day, building the confidence, building the experience, focusing on your bread and butter, not just short selling, long bias, small caps, big caps, options, let's do, stick to what you're good at and what feels comfortable for you.
So help me understand, and help everyone else understand, when did you find consistency? Because you left and you immediately started to trade full time. Did you find, because it sounds like you found consistency that year, but could you explain how long it took to find it?
Yeah. So I started full time January 2021, and I was profitable that month, and I have been ever since. So I net break even or whatever, I think maybe in March that year. So I made back my losses from 2020, but I've been profitable every single month since I started full time.
Now you said you started with 25.1.
Yep.
And anytime you got over that number, you would wire out immediately.
Yep.
Now, if you got under that, you must have not been risking much, right? Because if you got under that with one trade, if you're risking $100, you're under that, then you can't day trade. So how did you manage that at first?
Well, thankfully I had some green days, stuff like that. So I was profitable, started to become profitable, making money. And then I did up it to 25.5 or something like that. I can't remember the time frame.
Yeah.
And then ended up at 26. But I vividly remember being at 26 until October of 21, when that was the first time I ever ran out of buying power. It was when DWAC was going wild, and I had just the craziest month ever. For me at the time, that when I ran out of buying power, I'm like, what's going on? And that's when I realized, hey, I think I'm actually ready to increase my account. But up until that point, every day it was 25, 26K, somewhere in that range.
When you were first starting, were you risking, because I get it that you increased over time, that makes sense, but were you risking really, really small to make that 200 at first?
Yeah.
At the very beginning?
Yeah. Risking, I'd be looking for 10, 15, 20 cent moves, risking, 5 cents. So I could, if I have one win and two losses, I'm still even. If I have a 10 cent win, 2 5 cents, I'm still even. So
yeah, I'm sorry, I meant dollar wise, because you're so close to PDT. Just so I know people are going to be asking themselves, Alex, how did he manage it? Good news is you had profitability pretty quickly, so you didn't really have to deal with it. But did you have that in mind? Okay, I'm only going to risk $20 for the first couple of trades to make 50, and then I'm going to increase. You know what I'm saying? To stay away from that.
So basically, each day going in each day was, hey, I'm only going to take a trade that I feel I have a really good chance of winning on. I'm not going to just be over here trying trading things. I have to make. At that time, I have to make money. I had no choice. So I'm going to be very picky and very precise about the trades I'm taking. And obviously, when you have a little bit of profit, say I made a trade in the morning and I'm up, $50, $100, whatever that might be.
Right.
Then I'm feeling a little safer. I'm still risking very little, but obviously the pressure isn't there in terms of, oh crap, if I have a loss, I'm going to go under PDT. So definitely starting your day out on the right foot and not digging a hole. That's still both true to today. If you dig a hole, your day just gets so much worse. It's so much. If you don't dig a hole, no matter whether you're, your first month of trading, your first year, your 10th year, your day is so much better. Your trading is so much better. Your mind is so much better. Everything is better. So that was key, is not digging a hole to start the day.
Some people have been trading for 4 years. I mean, I've met people who trade for 10 years, 15 years and found success then.
Mhm.
And everyone's journey is different. But I'm very curious on what makes you to be able to find success, for some would say fast. So very curious what your thoughts on that.
I would say, I mean, I think part of it plays into like what I did before with training. I did a couple, physique competitions personally back when I was, 19, 20. And you got to be extremely disciplined, extremely determined to, like, it's miserable going through all the dieting and the cardio and stuff like that to get and really, really to become really lean and get in shape for something like that. So I've always been kind of someone who likes to push myself, like me versus me. I like to improve myself. So I definitely think that played a role, like the discipline that you have to have, like every single day. You don't have a choice. Like it's going to show if you don't have that discipline. And I think trading is the same way. I mean, not thinking back to that, but I relate it to all sports now. Like you can't see the greatest, athletes in the world, whatever sports you like, it doesn't matter. Like the discipline is there, no matter what, whether they're tired, they're sick, whatever it is, day in, day out, they're putting in the work and they're consistent with it. And the more you stay connected and consistent and disciplined, you're bound for success. So that played a huge role into it. And because I had that background, I think it was easier to make rules for myself and actually stick to them. So that's the difference. You can make rules, you can have ideas, like you can have all these ideas, concepts, rules, whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, but can you actually stick to them? Because when emotions, because you're talking real money, when emotions hit you and there's other stuff going on around you in your life, whatever that may be, can you stick to your rules? That's the difference. Everyone can come up with,
I love that.
the golden rule book for trading. Like it's out there, like what to do, what not to do, but can you actually do it? That's where I feel like my background with, training and my personal achievements and like testing myself have played a role in my trading. That I truly believe that's like what was key in me finding success soon, is because I learned prior how to actually stick to rules, so that when it came to trading, which is even way harder than any dieting, any competition, that kind of stuff, it's way harder because you're talking real money, your real life, like it's your livelihood, for some. And that was, I weigh a lot of benefit to those previous experiences in my previous career to where I'm at now.
That makes sense, man. It's a great thing that you said. Everyone has rules, but it's just really if you stick to them. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't stick to them, then you really don't have any rules.
Yeah, exactly. You can have a dictionary, print your own dictionary, but if you can't stick to it, it doesn't matter. It could take one trade. If I set the pre-market after hours rule for myself, I don't trade them. It could just take one trade that you blow your account, whether you're long or short, and just for not sticking to the rule, it just once. So it's so hard, but once you realize it's for the better for yourself, that's it. Then you can trust it. Trust that you're making the rules for a reason, so stick to them. Trust it.
I'm curious, what do you use any tools or anything that help you as a long bias trader?
Like in terms of like tracking or software?
Could be indicators, soft. Just because I know people are curious, like about indicators and stuff like that. Like, do you use any type of thing to help you with your like long thesis and so forth?
I like to keep my charts super clean. I pretty much just have VWAP on there. I don't have any volume. I mean, it's not necessarily an indicator, but volume is in the tape is huge. I mean, volume, looking at volume with the big picture daily chart, and then obviously looking at the intraday when you're trading it. But those are really the keys. I remember back when I was starting having 15 different lines all over the place. I don't even remember some of the indicators I had up there. And it's just, in my opinion, it's just such a distraction because
How do you view volume?
volume, I mean, when you look at volume is money, typically is money flow. There's money flow coming in, whether it's good or bad. But on the long bias side, when a chart looks nice, it's set up for a breakout. Volume that comes in, that's a good sign, especially when it breaks through those resistance levels. So when you have strong volume, clean chart, that it's in your favor because you broke through key levels. You have actual money. You have actual buyers helping. You're not the only one. Whereas if you're looking at a chart that just kind of has maybe average volume, you may just be in a sideways chop consolidation action. But when breakouts really hit, you can see the volume, you can see the money flow, and you can see the difference in how the chart moves. So
maybe
it's cleaner, it's smoother too.
Yeah, and you don't. It just when they work, they work immediately. Like the true breakouts, they're not perfect, but they work. When they really work well, they work immediately. So you're already, like, if you were on top of it and stalking, whether it's a sector or a nice chart, whatever that is, when it works, it's going to work, and you're not going to question if it's working because it's obvious that it's working.
So let's talk about some of the challenges before we start to wrap this up, because it sounds like everything's been sunshine and roses for people who don't know you, right? They're probably like, damn, this guy's, you know what? I would love to have that story, and I know you work hard. You obviously show that from your history, and that's a huge part of your success. And I definitely can see that because discipline's huge in this game, and it's what you do behind closed doors, just like in training, like when you're working out and stuff. It's what you do behind closed doors. Your body shows it later. So what I'm curious is, what was challenging for you? What was your biggest challenge? And then maybe you might be facing a challenge now. Is it, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So I would say my biggest challenge was November, December, ironically, right before I decided to go full time. I was like rock bottom. Like I lost, I don't know, it was 10, 12, 15K or something like that in those 2 months alone. Right before I had this plan of going full time, and I'm like, what am I doing with myself? Like, you're sitting there like, what am I doing with myself? What is, like, questioning everything. It was not an easy time for sure. It was definitely one of the hardest points of my life, understanding all the mistakes that were made, and like, can I really do this? Like, or what do I have to go back to train? Like, questioning your whole life, questioning everything about what you're doing. Is this the right move? Can I do it? Like, you're just spiraling. And, I had a talk with my fiance at the time, with my parents, and I was like, if this is something you want to try, like, you just have to forget what's happened before you, and you have to do it. Like, you have to buy in, you have to do it, give it your effort, and you, like, what's done is done. Like, you can't sit and wallow in all your losses and all your struggles and stuff like that. Like, you either go all in and give it a shot, or you move on. And either way is fine, but you can't sit and stew and stir about what was, the struggles. That was the first real challenge. And I would say over the course of the 4 years, almost 4 years full time now, the challenge is you're going to have days and weeks where you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to make money again. And it's so funny. You can have 3 months in a row doing well, have 3 days in a row that are just tough. You may not even be down that much, or you may be close to flat, whatever. But in your mind, you're like, I might need to find a job. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to make money trading again. So even though, no matter what stage you're at, whether it's day 1, year 10, it's a never ending challenge, like, mentally and against yourself. Like, hey, trust yourself. Like, you've been putting in the work and you're staying consistent, you're staying disciplined. Like, you got this, you can do it. But it never goes away. It's always there. You're always going to have those challenges, those questions like, man, can I do this? and just it was July this year was my biggest drawdown ever by far. It was the 4th of July week, so wasn't even a full week. It was, I think, like 3.5 days or something, and I was down over 20, almost 30K in a week, and I was a wreck, like lost. Like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
But same thing, I thought back to, those 2 months prior to starting full time when I was just struggling, and I thought, hey, what did you do then? What can you do now? And in reflecting back on those experiences, it took me 1 week. I had the weekend, and I came back and rolled off the best 3 weeks in a row that I ever had. But because I had that experience of, from when I first started, I was able to reflect on that and turn things around and reverse that much quicker, because I'm like, hey, I use the tools that I already learned from myself, 3.5 years earlier, in order to turn myself around.
I love that you share that, man, because I mean, full circle, like you just were able to reflect too on that same point. So look, Ben, I know a lot of people here are probably going to want to learn more about what you have to say, or probably want to ask a lot more questions. Where can they find out more about you?
I'm not huge on social media. I do have a Twitter and Instagram, which I can share with you. I don't post stuff, but I'm open to, messages and stuff like that. So I can send you that through Twitter and Instagram so that people can contact through messages. If they're
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and share that with the link below. But other than that, Ben, look, brother, I appreciate you sharing the story today and being on the show. And again. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's cool to be here years after watching, all your shows and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.